This is Unreasonable Comics with Alicia C. For this show, we're going to be talking about all things comics. I will talk about comic books, comic book-based video games, comic book-based television shows, and movies, and all things that tie in. For this episode, we are going to be talking about Deadpool. I am basing this review off of Deadpool Classic. This is volume 1, but I've also read the 6 volumes that I have out for the time. I believe there's about 8 or so, and we are going to start off with his origin story. Deadpool's origin story is that he was a mercenary. He has been a mercenary for a very long time, and at one point he developed cancer and went into an experimental treatment from the Weapon X program. That unfortunately did cure his cancer, but had a big drawback. Like everything in superhero worlds, he developed lesions all over his body. He healed at such an exponential rate that he developed calloused, basically, tumors on the outside of his body from the healing factor. So now that he's disfigured, he always wears his suit, that black and red outfit that we all know and love, and he can't die because he heals so quickly. He can regenerate an entire hand, an arm, a limb. You shoot him in the head, it comes right out and he heals, much like Wolverine. He got his healing factor from Wolverine, and that is why it is so similar, because it is literally taken straight from him. The original Deadpool origin story does start off with him in other comics. He is originally a villain that we later on see, once he actually gets his own comics, that we delve deeper into him, into the mercenary aspect, and he becomes a chaotic neutral. Once he is a chaotic neutral, he is no longer a villain. He's not in it for the good or the bad, he's in it for the money. He can get paid whatever it is. You tell him to kill a child, he will go to kill that kid. Somebody pays him more to save that child, he will turn right around and save that kid. That is all that matters to him, is money. Some of the recurring themes in Deadpool are failure. The recurring themes in Deadpool are failure, loneliness, his love affair with Death, the actual person, striving to be good, which he usually fails at. That loops right back around. And he's also the merc with the mouth. That is the biggest theme through every comic, because all the other ones kind of come in and out, but that one is the main theme. He constantly talks to the point where people want to kill him just because he won't shut the hell up. He breaks the fourth wall while doing this all the time. That is another big theme for him, but that ties into him being the merc with the mouth. Everything he does is basically his own monologuing, and he admits to the fact that he is monologuing not because he wants to, but because there is a man at his typewriter writing everything down for him. He accepts that he is not in control of his own life, that somebody else is doing it for him, and that they are creating these own little worlds and interactions for him to get into. So that is one of the biggest upsides to Deadpool, is that it's not this in-depth serious comic where, like Batman, everything is a 30, comic story arc, and it's really in-depth and a lot of crossover, and it's really dark and deep. Deadpool is not that deep, not that dynamic, not that hard to get into. He is really enjoyable just for the fact that he's going to go around on a mission, he's going to kill some people, he may or may not actually complete the mission, which ties into the failure, and he's going to be funny about it. He's going to joke around and just be an all-around good time. In the first volume, you get some interaction with him and Cable. Him and Cable have a love and hate relationship. There are times where him and Cable work together. There are comic books even where it is Cable and Deadpool. They are a duo. Cable often recruits Deadpool for missions, getting his help because he knows that he is a great asset and that he can help him out a lot. Other times, though, Deadpool decides he wants to screw Cable over because somebody else paid him more, and then all of a sudden they hate each other again because Deadpool's an ass. Definitely the love affair with Death is a great asset, because there's always a love affair, or there's always a love interest. Because Deadpool is so lonely, he is always striving to make a connection with someone. He usually messes it up. He's got 2 best friends, and he screws that up all the time. But the love affair with Death is great because he literally can't screw it up. He has this immortality, basically, because he can't die. So when he actually does get his healing factor taken away for a very short period of time, he actually is on Death's doorstep, and he is in this kind of limbo place, and he interacts with Death for the first time. Thanks for yawning, by the way. When he gets his healing ability taken away, he actually goes into this limbo state place when he's dying and meets Death for the first time. And Death is not this amazingly gorgeous kind of fictional representation of something that's supposed to be evil or just considered a bad guy a lot of times. Death is a skeleton in a cloak. Of course, she's got big boobs, but other than that, she is kind of the representation that we always see, where it's just this hooded, skulled figure that's coming for you. But it's great because Deadpool finds this kind of emotional attachment to something that he knows he can almost never have. He actually even wants to die at certain points just because he wants to be with death again. And he tries to find tons of ways to do that, and actually he gives up that goal a little bit down the line in the volumes when he realizes that he might actually be able to become a hero and save the world. And that ties into him striving to be good. He does try to do good things a lot of times. You'll see him go on a mission and he actually completes it. And then he realizes he did something really, really bad. And you get that actually in the first volume when he interacts with Sasquatch and he messes up a project of Sasquatch that they were doing, and he's gonna kill a bunch of people basically because he disrupted some kind of nuclear reactor basically. And once he realizes the mistake he makes, he actually tries to fix it, and that's when he loses part of his healing capability, and he can't grow back his hand properly. He loses a finger, he can't grow that back. He's got a bunch of bullet wounds, and he's actually dying at parts and times, and he's striving really hard to get back his healing capabilities. So you get the love affair with death, you get the loneliness, you get the failure, you get the striving to be good. Those actually all tie in together. They are all connected in some way, shape, or form because it's all Deadpool. It's all what he wants to be, what he is, and just him trying to be himself, basically. His two best friends are Weasel and Al. Weasel is his tech guy. He is this nerdy little dude who makes the transporter for him. It's on his belt so he can, bounce from place to place. And also the cloaking device, which makes him be able to shift into different people. There are times when you're going to see him as the Green Goblin, as Spider-Man, as, a bunch of other people. He just kind of likes to hide in plain sight a lot of times, so he will mask himself. And that's what he has Weasel for, is he helps him out with all those little gadgets. And then there's Al. Al is actually this little old blind lady who he keeps hostage in his house. But as you see as time goes on, Al isn't so much a hostage as a willing, permanent member of his home. She is almost like his conscience. She tries to guide him in the right direction. She tries to tell him maybe why he did a bad thing. Not that he did a bad thing to stop it, but to kind of get him to realize he did something out of character and to kind of just be that little voice on his shoulder telling him, why did you do that? Why do you think that happened? And it's a good dynamic because he is very abusive to Al. You actually stop for a couple times and think, why would this person not try harder to escape from him? And you realize because she knows he can be a good person and she actually wants to help him do that. And that's another part of him striving to be good, is that he actually has people helping him. It's not just him trying to do it and other people telling him, you're an asshole, you're a villain, you're bad, you can't be good. Everybody else is literally trying to help him out. There is one downside to Deadpool. Unfortunately, the artists are not always the same person. These comics are done over a long period of time, and what happens is certain artists take certain liberties with Deadpool, and unfortunately, their idea of the origin story are two different things. So in one comic, we see that he is drawn with lesions on his face. He's kind of broken skin and calloused, and you can tell that it is what basically a tumor on the outside would look like. It's very graphic detail and it's done very well, and it does make you kind of look at him in the sense that you can understand why he's horrified to look in the mirror and horrified to have anybody else look at him, and so automatically assume that somebody would look at him even if they loved him in horror, because he can't understand how this is a good thing. But then we go from one comic to the next, and suddenly he's drawn like the Thing. This bothers me because it is such a drastic change. It makes his face large, bulbous rocks. It doesn't fit with anything. And unfortunately, too, sometimes what happens is you can see on the front that he is tall and he is muscular, but he's not overly built. He actually has kind of a gymnast figure in a way. Unfortunately, what happens is when they draw him in such a rocky formation, it changes what this looks like. He's got a rounded, almost oval head. He's got squared shoulders a bit, but he's got a tight waist. When you see him out of the uniform, or at least without the mask, he's got this very big, square, boxy head, and it is very bulbous, and you would think if he's got all that rock formation on his face, you'd see it underneath here. He wouldn't be so slim with all the proper definition of somebody who's just, very muscular. So that is a problem. It doesn't correlate with what he looks like in the uniform with what he looks like out of it. So that is definitely the biggest downside to Deadpool. Nothing to do with the actual storyline, nothing to do with Deadpool the character, just has to do with the artists. For a little bit of recap, we had very Joss Whedon-esque season 1. There was a lot of twists and turns, a lot of heartbreak. We obviously get that development of the Skye and Ward romance, and then of course Ward turns evil. It felt very much like a Buffy Angel kind of situation where, oh crap, he's turned bad and now he's the villain. The Fitzsimmons relationship reminds me very much of a Willow-Xander kind of dynamic where obviously they were two friends, they've been together so long, they're so close, and the one obviously feels more for the other and they just don't see it. Obviously, my favorite character is May. Melinda May is the best badass you could ever get. I love now that on Twitter, instead of doing Chuck Norris lines, we're doing Melinda May. You know, things like Melinda May counted to infinity twice. Just the most ridiculous things you could ever think of. It's hysterical, and I love it. We saw Coulson die in Avengers, and obviously now he comes back to life, and that was the majority of season 1's story arc. Was, yes, it revolved around Centipede and the girl in the flower dress, but their plot revolved around finding out how Agent Coulson came back. You know, we thought the major villain was the clairvoyant, but really what the clairvoyant wanted was the knowledge Coulson had. So really it was a very Coulson-eccentric season, and that was a good thing because a lot of us were trying to figure out how the hell did Coulson come back from the dead. And it was nice. It wasn't just a first episode synopsis. Oh yeah, this is what happened. Coulson got fixed. I mean, obviously they tell us, oh, he survived somehow and then he went to Tahiti. It's a magical place. But it was more than that. It was never just so simple as they helped him out and he survived. So we had that going on for us. Definitely, I called it when we first see Bill Paxton. I turned to my husband and I just went, oh, he's the most famous person we know. He's going to be evil. And it didn't happen the first episode he showed up, which was my bad. I called it on the first episode and he's like, no, I think they're going to try and make him a good guy. And I went, okay. And then when we find out he's a bad guy, I just went, I win! I win because I could see it coming. I love being able to do that. I mean, sometimes it sucks because you can't just enjoy something. You're like, I know it's going to happen. But it also makes you feel a little good because you do know the story well enough, or at least you know character development well enough that you're like, oh, I know what's going to happen. So, obviously Ward is evil, and the ending was very difficult for me. There was a lot of parts that I liked and a lot of parts I didn't. Obviously Fitz is now in a coma, and he's in intensive care, and they're doing the best for him. Once again, it's a very Willow-Xander kind of relationship because we did this sort of thing in the end of season 2 for Buffy where Willow winds up, she ends up in the hospital after getting hit over the head, and she's in there, and Xander kind of confesses a little love thing for her. We haven't seen Simmons do that for Fitz yet, but obviously Fitz has already confessed to Simmons his feelings, so there's that dynamic there. The fight scene between Melinda May and Ward was great, especially, flying Melinda May coming out of nowhere was hysterical. Because you knew Skye wasn't going to take him on hand-to-hand, and she's not a killer. Regardless of what Ward's done to her, she's not a killer. She's not going to shoot him. But you knew she had something in place, and it was hysterical watching Melinda May fly out of nowhere and beat his ass. The one thing that I could kind of see coming, and if I'm wrong, I'm wrong, but for season 2, I have a feeling, because I know my husband said to me, he's like, oh, Ward's gone now. And I went, they're never gone. I was like, this is a Whedon show. Nobody's ever gone. Even if they kill them, they're never gone. the girl in the flower dress obviously told Ward about, Sky's background. Not all of it, but he knows something, and he mentioned it to Sky. And I have a feeling the season 2 story arc is going to be based on Sky, and maybe when things start to happen to her, she's going to remember that, and we're going to have to go to some, secret location where Ward is being held captive, and he's going to have to help them out. And I have a very strong feeling that it's going to be almost like a Spike redemption storyline, where if they do bring Ward back, they may not. They might put him away, and we may never see his ass again. I just, if you've watched enough Joss Whedon shows, you kind of know that he never writes anybody off. You never have a character come in that isn't important. Everybody has meaning. There's never just a throwaway character. He's not like that. He thinks about these characters. He remembers them 5 seasons down. They will pop up and you'll be like, who the frick is this guy? And just like, don't you remember from, season 1, episode 12, this guy just randomly popped up. And it's like, it wasn't random. That is Joss. So I very much feel like Ward is going to be a part of season 2 in developing the whole Sky thing. He's going to have to help them, maybe find the girl in the flower dress and kind of figure out her storyline. And they may try to work him back in. That's just my guess because, like I said, you watch enough shows and you kind of just start to, you can almost like picture what the storylines are going to develop into. The other thing was, it was awesome watching him do it. So Joss loves to play that little twist game with you, where you think you know what's happening, but you really don't. The references I will give, and then I will show how they relate to the scene. It's Buffy. Sorry, I'm going to reference it, but it's just easy, especially because it's his biggest work. There was one episode where Giles is sitting in the crypt and he's waiting and he's like, oh, nothing's going to happen. And he leaves and Ethan Rayne comes out of the darkness and he starts going, oh, you don't know what's going to come. And Giles comes back into the crypt and he's like, did somebody say something? And Ethan's like, damn it, I thought you were gone. It could have been that climactic character coming back and, coming out of the darkness and, oh, to be continued, or, just like cutting into the black and, you don't know what's going to happen. But Joss loves to play with you. So it was like, oh, you're building it up and, oh, we caught him in the first 5 seconds. The same thing goes for the Dracula episode of Buffy, where Buffy kills Dracula and then all of a sudden we see him trying to billow up out of the dust. And we're thinking, oh God, Dracula isn't dead. This is going to be a 2-part episode. And then Buffy's standing over him going, I've seen the movies. You always come back. And she's like, she stakes him again. And then he tries to build up and she's like, and he falls into dust. And that's a very Whedon type thing. So towards the end of the episode, we get to see John Garrett being taken down by Deathlock. We kind of dismiss him because a lot of other things are happening, but then all of a sudden we have that scene where he comes back and he gets all of, he's put in full body armor. And even my husband said, yeah, because he's supposed to be in full body armor. And it was kind of, you could even see all the technical detail and the way it's shot and everything. And it's like, man, they must have spent so much time getting that scene put together with having him in the full body armor and everything. And I'm just sitting there going like, he's not coming back. We know he's not coming back. Like, why would they bother? We already did everything for him. We already figured out his story arc. There's not much left. I mean, sure, you could try if you wanted to, but I was just like, we did John Garrett. And then Coulson comes in and blows him up. And my husband just started laughing his ass off because he didn't see it coming. I thought it was hysterical too, just because it was, like I said, it's such a Whedon move of just, it's almost like what he calls a wham line. That wasn't necessarily a wham line, but it's almost like a gotcha moment. You think you know what's going to happen and then, gotcha, he's not coming back. You blow him away into smithereens. That's the reason I'm saying I really don't think he's going to come back or there's going to be any reason for him. And maybe like a Ward Garrett flashback kind of thing. But other than that, I don't see it happening. But I definitely enjoyed that. I liked that it did have that feel of Whedon where you're just like, he doesn't do the expected. I mean, obviously, I keep thinking it's expected. I feel like it's expected of him because I've watched enough shows by him. So you kind of get the feel for, it's like watching a Hitchcock movie. You know, you notice their patterns after a while. You see what they're going to do. But I know that for a lot of people who aren't as devoted as I have been to watching his shows, especially my husband who's only just finished season 3 of Buffy, I want to kill him. You know, he doesn't know the way he works. So for him, you know, he can still be surprised. So I definitely enjoyed that for his sake of enjoyment. We finished it off where we know S.H.I.E.L.D. has been demolished and Fury is no longer the director, and he gives it away to Coulson. So Coulson, it's no longer Agent Coulson, it's Director Coulson. So this is definitely one of those shows where the first season, it was almost, for the most part, each episode was devoted to a case or something happening, and you built up character development and dynamics, and you got a villain for that, but it's going to continue now, and now that you've built that base and that almost like camaraderie, you have something to build off of. So season 2 will be a lot more integrated. It'll be them building up, but you already know these people, so it's a lot to look forward to. You know, season 1s are usually rough, but this one wasn't that hard. The first couple episodes were a little struggling, but once it got into more of a story plot line and you got into the characters, it was definitely worth the time. And it bothers me because we have to watch the movies. If I don't want to watch the movies, like certain ones I didn't want to have to watch, but I did because I needed to know things. But I don't necessarily mind that Avengers is tied in with them and things like that. So it definitely tied everything together, and that was a great part of it as well. So that was my Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. season 1 recap and finale. So for Deadpool's transfer into other media, we don't really have a movie per se. We did have a Wade Wilson character put into the X-Men Wolverine movie. The problem with that was that they made him Weapon X, but they didn't make him Deadpool. It was very odd because the character buildup was kind of good actually. They had Ryan Reynolds playing Wade Wilson. He was a wisecracker, constantly talking, running his mouth. There's the one scene in the elevator where he keeps making comments, and somebody turns around and is like, "Can I just slap him? Can I just shut him up? Is there nothing you can do to make him stop?" So that was like a great intro. But then all of a sudden they take him away. And he comes back and he doesn't have a mouth. It's been sewn shut or whatever was done to him and all these weird things. And it was very awkward because they took a lot of liberties with Wade Wilson and kind of completely cut out the aspect of Deadpool, what Deadpool would actually be like. So a lot of Deadpool fans were pissed because you didn't need to do it. You could have made him but you could have literally picked any other character to make him that way. There is a onslaught of bad guys that you could have picked to just make a villain and then kill him off. I'm not sure if they wanted to continue with that and bring Wade Wilson back and make him Deadpool, because at the end of it, they kill him. And Deadpool can't die. He's just like Wolverine. So it was very confusing. That was definitely a horrible transfer from the comic to the movies. The other thing that you can say is that he hasn't really been put into TV as much. The only really thing that you get out of him is there's one episode where it's Deadpool versus Spider-Man in the Ultimate Spider-Man cartoon. That one was actually pretty funny. You get that banter between Deadpool and Spider-Man. Anybody who reads comics with their interactions, certain fandoms have this opinion that we all know that Deadpool kind of doesn't have a preference, if you would. And he's got this weird attraction to Spider-Man. So there is kind of this love-hate entanglement. You always see Deadpool making these cutesy-pootsy little faces towards him in all the comics, and there's little hearts above him, and he's just like, "Honey, what would you like to do?" So it was great to get that one episode and to get that interaction between them. It was really good dialogue, banter, and everything like that. So we got a nice dose of him. Unfortunately, they only did the one episode. There hasn't been a cartoon, even X-Men. Nobody seems to want to put Deadpool in. It could be because he's such a loudmouth and he curses a lot, but you can work around that. There's anything you can do. Hell, we found ways to do all the other villains and all the other characters who have really deep and hard backgrounds and things like that. You find ways around them. You make it work, but they try to constantly say, just like DC tries to say that nobody wants Wonder Woman because she's a female and nobody wants a female superhero, they say nobody wants Deadpool because, he's trash talking and he breaks the fourth wall, and, nobody really wants him to be in the spotlight, which is total bullshit. The one really good thing I have to say is that they did make a video game for Deadpool. And a lot of people didn't like the video game, and I honestly think the only people who didn't like the video game are people who don't like Deadpool or don't really know Deadpool. Because every time you die, every time you do so, he's constantly talking to you. He is Deadpool. He doesn't shut up. He's constantly making little quips. Every time he fights somebody, he's making comments. When you die, he taunts you. You come back, and and a lot of it, yes, is repetition. He's going to say the same things over and over again for the most part. There's only so many lines they could have given him, and if you're going to die 8 times in a row, guess what? You're going to majorly hear the same stuff over and over again. But for the most part, it was a really good game. You get a lot of interaction with Cable, which it was good because if you read the comics, yes, he does have certain partners, but for the most part, the only kind of friend and partner and person that you can actually have him in a game with, that you can maybe play more than one or play off of them, is Cable. That is the best person you can have with him. Their friendship and dynamic is really awesome. So the game itself was great. There was a lot of banter. You can see Cable it pisses him off when Deadpool does Deadpool things, and that's like one of the greatest parts. It was a really good game. I know it is difficult at times because you can die a lot if you just like any game. You play Batman Arkham Asylum, hell, first couple of times, you die when you meet a boss. But overall, it was a really good game, and it was definitely true to Deadpool fans in the fact that he's constantly breaking the fourth wall. He's constantly talking to you. It has like little Deadpool snippets in between. I know somebody cut them together and tried to make it like a movie or an episode of like a cartoon for Deadpool. It's not. It's just the gameplay. It's still fun and cute, but it's just not. It's not a Deadpool show, and it's not a Deadpool movie, and I really wish that they would finally just get into it. I wish Ryan Reynolds, yes, Green Lantern sucked, but I don't think he was right for that role. I think that he is right for Deadpool. We've seen it when he played Wade Wilson. We saw him talking like an idiot. He runs his mouth and on and off and on and off and on and off. And I think he's got that great witty banter. Just watch Van Wilder, just watch even Just Friends or any of those things. You can see him being that wise ass jerk. Watch him on Two Guys, a Girl, and a Pizza Place. He has that personality. He can be that pain in the ass that even when he gets his ass kicked, he's still just there making quips. He's just making jokes. He doesn't stop. And I think that they should invest in him. I know he signed on for it and he still wants to do it. And I honestly think he would be a great Deadpool. I just wish they would give it the chance. So that was Deadpool, the transition from comic to media. The next thing I'm going to go over is the collectibles. So now for the Deadpool collectibles, I have not gotten a lot of them. Once again, because he didn't have a transfer into other media, like a cartoon or a movie or anything like that. He only had the video game, and even with that, I don't think they really did a lot of merchandising for that. There obviously is always going to be stuff, though, because even if he's just a comic book character, they always do merchandising and stuff like that. It's just not a wide variety. It's not as big as you would get, like, with, say, a Batman or a Joker or the X-Men or anything like that. They've had so much transfer into other media. They've had dedicated TV shows and movies and games and worlds focused all around them. So they get a lot more help. But definitely Deadpool, anything Deadpool's great. I have the little Deadpool, the little Popeye. I looked around for this a lot because even though all the media people want to say that Deadpool isn't a fan or a big hit or anything like that, I went to a comic book convention in Louisville, and they had an entire table stacked up high with every character. I asked for Deadpool, they had sold out. You don't sell out of something that nobody really likes. And they had a lot of them, they told me. They were like, we had a whole bunch, it was only the second day, and somehow they had already run out. Why? Because Deadpool sells. Deadpool is great. This little guy, it's awesome. He looks great. Unlike some of the other ones where, like, you can even see, well, you can't really see, but on the back, it shows you Beast and Dark Phoenix and Silver Surfer. They look cutesy. They look little comic-y, whatever, and it looks really out of character. And I know that's what they kind of want for this sometimes, but honestly, I feel like Deadpool still looks like Deadpool. Deadpool looks like mini Deadpool in here. If you've ever seen on the comics, he's got his little mini-me guy that talks to him in his head and everything like that. This is what this looks like, and that's a great collectible to have because you still feel like it's as true to Deadpool. It's not them giving you this patronizing, cutesy-pootsy little outside of the spectrum of the good comics type of thing. I have seen other collectibles on eBay that I really wanted to get. Didn't get a chance to, though, unfortunately. It's also hard to get a decent looking collectible just in general, depending on what you want. I've seen too many, like even Harley Quinn's, once again, artists take liberties with certain things, and unfortunately they take liberties with what we know and love, and it's hard. At least for me, I am very almost loyal to what I like, so when they tweak it and they change it, certain things, certain Harleys I love, and other ones I look at it and I go, that's not Harley, that's just some girl painted up like Harley. So I feel like the same thing kind of goes with Deadpool. There are a lot of there's a lot of figures and stuff like that that I've seen that are really great. But once again, for the most part, I haven't seen anything that caught my eye so badly that I needed to have it, except for this little guy. You do see I have the posters. That's my Deadpool. And then that one I also got at Comic-Con in the WizardCon in Louisville. I had to get that one instead of another one where he's firing off two guns, I believe. The artist that was selling them, I only had, I think, $10 or so in my pocket, or $20, and I was trying to get this one, and I believe this one. I was getting the Rogue and Gambit for the X-Men. And I wanted both of them, and it was going to be $20, and if I needed to get the other one, it was $30 because it was a bigger poster. So I was a little upset about that, but for the most part, those are the collectibles that I'm aware of. If anybody else knows of anything, pass it my way. I would love to find out about it, to get it, to have it. As you can see, these are only a few of the things that I have. Can't fit everything on the back of me, but I do like my collectibles just as much as I like my comics and my video games and all that goes with it. So that has been the Deadpool review. We've done the comic, or at least the classic volumes 1 and 2, and then we've also gone over, obviously, the movie, the games, and a short little snippet of a cartoon, and then the collectibles. So this has been Unreasonable Comics with Alicia C. Next time on Unreasonable Comics, we're going to be going over Rogue. She is one of my top 4 favorite comic book characters, and she is one of 2 of my favorite female comic book characters. She's a very dynamic character. I know I love her, and everybody else will too. This has been Unreasonable Comics with Alicia C.